Well, staying with the refugee crisis in Paris, German Chancellor Angela Merkel is meeting with French President Francois Hollande. They too are discussing the refugee crisis. They want to strengthen their position ahead of a crucial EU-Turkey summit which takes place on Monday. Both leaders have appealed for a united EU response to deal with the influx of people. Let's get some more analysis on this and speak to Franck Duvell. He joins me from Oxford in the UK. He's an associate professor from the Centre on Migration Policy Society at the University of Oxford. Many thanks for joining us, Franck. Now, listening to some of the rhetoric coming out, listening to some of the rhetoric coming from Tusk yesterday, it seems to be that the EU's hopes are firmly pinned on Turkey to stem this refugee influx. Do you believe this is the correct solution to the migration crisis?
Well, the bottom line of the issue is that the EU has the capacity but doesn't really want to accept refugees. And that on the other hand, it is Turkey so far that has been receiving most of the refugees. So the responsibility for providing protection to refugees has to be negotiated between these two main actors.
They're now Tusk is suggesting this idea of shipping refugees that have actually moved from Turkey to Greece back to Turkey. I mean, what do you think of that as a plan, and how is that likely to go down with Turkey's government?
Well, in an ideal world, we would provide regular migration channels like evacuation, like resettlement of refugees from Syria, Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, to safe countries like the EU. This has not been agreed by any of the countries. On the other hand, a certain proportion of the people arriving in Europe, and this is a very, very small number, it's less than 10% probably, would not qualify as refugees but as economic migrants, and we've got to find solutions for them as well, which very often is returned to the country of origin. Whether it is sort of viable to put the burden only on Turkey is questionable. So whether it is viable to send people back from Europe to Turkey, for example, is highly contested.
So what do you think the solution should be then? There seems to be no cohesive, united plan from Europe. Do you think that's a solution, coming up with a fair strategy which divides the refugees equally?
Well, there is a cohesive plan on the side of the EU. The EU Commission has developed a very cohesive plan consisting of development aid to African countries, giving money to Turkey to help accommodating the people, suggesting resettlement from Turkey, relocation within the EU, improved border controls, registration, enhanced asylum procedures and all the rest of it. But it's not been implemented by the member states. And here really lies the core of the problem. We've got a wonderful program, but this is rejected by the member states. This is why bilateral talks between the two main actors, like Germany and Turkey, the two main receiving countries in this situation, are so important.
Indeed. Dr. Franck Duvell, really good to hear your thoughts. Franck, an associate professor from the Centre on Migration Policy Society, University of Oxford.